Welcome to Kalash, guys. It's Vishnu here again. Very good evening to all of you. It's evening here, so good evening. So, this will be the continuation of the previous two videos. The basics for absolute beginners was a first video where I spoke about the various moves and notation and other things in chess. And the second video was about what's the difference between stalemate, checkmate, and check, and a few other things. And the third video will be a continuation of that. So there are a couple of things that I'll be covering in this, like the arrangement of king and queen, and while arranging the pieces on and over the board. Of course, you're looking at the screen right now, you can clearly see how it has been arranged, but you need to know something while setting up the board. Some people misinterpret. I mean, they don't know how to set up the king and queen on the chessboard. They have a confusion with it. So I'll be covering many things like captures, the center of the board, and the various ways you can end the game in a draw, and how to castle, which I've not covered in the previous two videos. So this will be just the very basics, and it's for beginners and absolute beginners. So let's begin without any ado. I'll start with king and queen arrangement. So when you're setting up the pieces on the board, the easiest way to recall how to set up the king and queen is the white queen will always be on the white square, the black queen will always be on the dark square or the black square. So you don't have to place the king on the D1 square, the D1 square, and this is the D8 square. So the king should be on the E file, E1 square. The white king will be on E1 and the black king will be on E8. So some people keep it on D8 and the queen on E8. So that is a mistake. So always make sure that if you are playing white, your white queen should be on a light colored square. And if you are playing black, your black queen should be on a black or a dark colored square. That's the first thing. And what is the object in the game of chess? I mean, object means objective. What is the aim? It is simply to beat the opponent, to checkmate the opponent's king. So we'll be covering in detail in the coming sessions, and I'll be uploading various ways on how to attack, defend, and how to checkmate the opponent and all that. But this is the basic objective of the game, is to checkmate the opponent's king. So I didn't speak about captures in the previous two videos. So what is a capture? Capture is nothing but capturing a piece of your opponent. For example, after e4, e5, f4, e takes f4. So this is called as a capture. Whenever you pick a piece or a pawn of your opponent, you call it a capture. So, and how is it represented in the notation? It is represented as E cross F4. So you read it as E takes F4 or simply EF4 or E cross F4. You can see it here on the notation window. It is clearly mentioned as E cross F4. Okay. And a few things which I would like to mention. You can only capture pieces of your opponents. You can't capture your own pieces. So that is illegal to do. So you cannot capture your own piece. That is illegal. That doesn't make any sense to. And also that is illegal to do. So you only need to capture, you have to capture the pieces or pawns of your opponent. Little bit more information about the pieces. So you can see that the queen, I've already mentioned, that it can travel in any direction, diagonally, vertically, horizontally. And the bishop, light squared bishop, is capable of moving diagonally only on light squares, because that's why it's called light squared bishop. And similarly, the dark squared bishop is capable of moving only on dark squares. It cannot switch its color. So if you want to move another bishop on a light square, then you have another bishop for it. To move it on light squares, you can use that. And the rook is the second most powerful piece after the queen. It can move vertically and it can move horizontally. So it has 5 points. The queen has got 9 points. The knight and the bishop has got 3 points each. The king is invaluable. It's priceless. If you lose a king, you lose the game. Pawn has got 1 point. So the queen, the bishop, and the rook are called as long range pieces because, as the name itself implies, it can move many squares front, backwards, and front and backwards, and even diagonally if it comes to the queen and the bishops. So these are long range pieces. So the short range piece is the knight. The king is also called a short range piece because it can move only one square vertically, horizontally, and diagonally. And the knight can move in L shape. It can jump over other pieces, but it is considered as a short range piece because it takes a couple of moves to reach the 8th rank. For example, if this knight on G1 has to reach the 8th rank, it has to go to F3, then to E5, then to D7, and then to F8. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. It takes 4 moves to reach F8. Whereas for a rook or a queen or a bishop, it takes less number of moves to achieve it. For example, if this bishop has to go to the 6th rank, it can just easily go in one move itself. Well, the queen and the rook is also powerful enough to reach its destination in less number of moves because those are long range pieces. I would like to talk about pawn promotion. So what do you mean by pawn promotion? Can anybody have a guess? I'll give you a few seconds to think. You can think. And if you have an idea about it, just put it in the comments. So pawn promotion. As you can see here in this chessboard, the white's pawn has reached the 7th rank. It is supported by the king. It's defended by the king. And it's white's turn to move, and he can simply push this pawn to the 8th rank whenever your pawn, if you are playing white, if it reaches the 8th rank, then you get the right to choose a piece. That is, you can turn the pawn into any piece of your own. You can make it a queen or a rook or a bishop or a knight, but you can't make another king or another pawn. You can only promote it to a piece except the king, because there is already one king. You don't need 2 kings, so you need only 1 king, and so you can promote it to a queen or a rook or a bishop or a knight. So the normal promotion is simply promoting it to a queen. The normal promotion is promoting it to a queen. Okay, when you promote it to a piece other than a queen, when you promote your pawn to a piece other than a queen, you call it under promotion. That is a technical term used in chess. So why is it called as under promotion? Because you are promoting to a piece which is less powerful than a queen, which is a rook, knight, or a bishop. So when you promote it to one of these pieces, or you can say when you promote it to a piece other than a queen, such as a rook or a knight in this case, or a bishop, then you call it under promotion. So why do you want it to promote to a knight, bishop, or a rook? Why not the queen? Because the queen is the most powerful piece. Ideally, in most of the situations, pawn promotion happens only in the end game. In some cases, it can happen in the middle game too. But usually, it happens only in the end game where only a few pieces are left on the board, and then you promote it to a queen. And so you promote it to queen because it's the most powerful piece, and you can checkmate the king more. I mean, more fast, easily. But in some situations, promoting to a queen could give a stalemate. So there are some possibilities like that. So then you choose a piece other than a queen, so that you want to avoid a draw and you want to win using another piece without giving a stalemate, such as a knight or a rook or a bishop. So we will come to more such examples in the future. But this is the I just want to give you the primary understanding of under promotion. Let's not get into the details of it and make it too complicated. So this is what you mean by under promotion and promotion. Okay. So one other thing which I would like to let you know is the king side and the queen side in the game of chess. So what is king side and what is queen side? As you can see here, I have already marked it by arrows. This part of the board where the king is being placed and everything to the right of it is called as the king side. Of course, when you're playing black, it would be to your left. Since you're playing white, it will be to your right. So this will be your king side. Similarly, the queen side will be the part of the board where the queen is placed, starting from that square to everything to the left of it if you are playing white, to everything to the right of it if you are playing black. So in this way, you divide the board into two equal halves. So that is called as a king side and the queen side. Let's just play a few moves to understand what is castling. So what do you mean by castling and why do you want to castle? Castling is nothing but an act to secure your king. It is to move your king to safety. You can castle either on the right hand side, that is called as the king side castling, and you can castle also on the queen side, which is called as long castle or queen side castling. So let's look at an example of a king side castling. I'll play some moves. Now black and white both have castle. So please observe this carefully. When you castle like this, when you castle king side, your king moves two squares to the right. Well, white is doing it will be to the right, and if black is doing it will be to the left. So here, king moves two squares to the right. This is the only time where the king can move two squares in one go, and it happens in no other situation, only in castling. The rook also comes to f1 automatically. So this is called as castling. The rook from h1 comes to f1. So this is called as kingside castling. So this happens if you castle on the king side. So this is called as kingside castling. So let's have a look at what is queenside castling. Some moves just to develop all your pieces and make space for queenside castling. Okay, so after NB d7, now you can see that the queen side of white is free. Only the rook is yet to be developed on the queen side. And you can, if in queen side castling, just observe the pattern, okay? Your king two squares to c1, and the rook has moved one, two, three squares. Three squares, and it has jumped from a1, b1, c1 to d1. It has moved, four squares to d1, right from a1 to d1. Whereas, while we did a kingside castling, it only moved three squares, h1, g1, and f1. So this is a difference. The king is not on b1. Don't put the king on b1 and put the rook on c1 while castling. That is, if you're castling on queen side, don't make the mistake of moving the king to b1 and moving the rook to c1. That would be a mistake. That is not the way to castle. It is illegal to do so. So if you are castling on queen side, it should always be like this. It is this the same thing applies to black also. If the black is castling on queen side, the king will be on c8 and the black rook will be on d8. So please keep this one thing in your mind and don't make such mistakes. So this is about castling. Another thing which I would like to talk about is in how many situations the game can end up in a draw. So one situation is stalemate. I've already spoken about stalemate in the previous video, so I'm not going to talk about that again. So one of that is stalemate, and the next situation is when there are no pieces and pawn left on the board. In like what you see right now, the two kings are facing each. Only two kings are left on the board: the black king and the white king. Rest all of them have been exchanged and taken out of the board. So in such a situation, you can't do anything because you don't have any pawns or pieces left to mate the opponent's king, both white and black. So you cannot win this game. With king, you cannot place these two kings here like this or like on e3 or d3 and f3 and try to give check or something. That doesn't make any sense because that is completely illegal and it's completely illegal. And the king cannot move closer to the other king face to face like this with no square distance between them. You should always keep your king at one square distance from the other king because it cannot move to d3, e3 or f3 because it is illegal, because it is being controlled by the other king. Similarly, the black king cannot move to d3 or f3 because that is also illegal, no matter whose move it is. I mean, be it whose move it is. So this is another situation where you can declare the game as a draw. So first one was stalemate, and the second thing is when there are no pieces and pawn left on the board. And one other situation is called as a 50 move rule. So imagine that you get such a position like what you see on the screen right now. You have a few pawns, you have some pawns and one piece left each, but you can't make any progress out of this situation. So this is also a theoretically drawn position, but being beginners, some people make the mistake of, they still keep playing, expecting others to blunder. For example, in case if white had a dark squared bishop here in place of a light squared bishop, imagine that instead of the light squared bishop, you had a dark squared bishop on f2. What would be the result of the game? Just imagine. Of course, you can capture any of these dark pawns because your bishop is on dark square, but will you be able to win the game? Sure, you can't win the game still because after sacrificing this piece, d takes c5. Say that you capture on c5, bishop takes e5 and d takes c5. Even black cannot do anything about it. Even after white gives up the piece, black cannot win this position because its entry has been restricted. All its pawns are on light square and black has got a dark squared bishop, which means this bishop cannot attack any of these pawns and the king cannot gain any entry, neither to h5 nor to a4. These are the only two ways it can enter into the white's territory. But since these two squares are under the control of white, it cannot enter. So even after white sacrifices his dark squared bishop on c5, and after d takes c5, in spite of black being a full piece up in material, instead of being up in material, black cannot win this game. So it's clearly a drawn game. So imagine that in such a situation, after you sacrifice the bishop on c5, d takes c5, and you ask for a draw with the opponent, you know there is a way to end the game in a draw by mutual agreement. That is, if both the opponents feel that they cannot make any progress in the current position, and since they cannot make any progress in the current position, that means none of them can win. So they are convinced that they cannot win, and they will come to terms and agree the game to a draw. They will sign a peace treaty. So that is one such rule. It is a FIDE rule where you can agree a game to a draw by mutual agreement, by offering a draw to the opponent. If you see no progress can be made, of course, this should be checked from both the ends, not from your side alone. See that if you can't make any progress, but if the opponent can somehow break through and try to win the situation, then your offer may be declined. But if both the parties cannot make any significant progress, then the game can be declared as a draw by mutual agreement. So that is called as draw by agreement. That is one other way to end the game in a draw. So coming back to this 15 move rule, which I would like to explain. Imagine this situation where you had a dark squared bishop and you capture this pawn on c5 and he takes d takes c5. Now he has got a piece up. He will be thinking, he's a beginner. He doesn't know much about chess. So he will be still trying to play for a win. Of course, it's pointless, but he doesn't know much about it because he's still a beginner. He would expect you to commit some other blunder and say that he tries to wait and play, like keeps on playing some moves, which keeps on playing some random moves and doesn't make any improvement in his position. Then there is something called as the 50 move rule. That is, if your opponent and you both continuously play for 50 moves without any pawn movements or without any captures, then the game can be declared as a draw after 50 moves. That is, on the 51st move of white, the white need not play the 50th move. He can call an arbiter. So who is an arbiter? Arbiter is like an umpire in cricket. He looks after the proceedings in a tournament. He is in charge there. So you can call the arbiter and say, arbiter, 50 moves are over. My opponent and I cannot make any progress in this situation. There has been no pawn movements. There has been no piece captures. The game should be declared as a draw as per the 50 move rule. The arbiter will definitely consign with this and he will immediately declare the game as a draw, because that is a FIDE rule, and that makes sense also because you can't make any progress in this situation. Even after, say, b takes c5, d takes c5, he can still argue that you can still push this pawn forward. He may play bishop on e7 and allow you to push this pawn to d6. You can still push the pawn to d6 and he has to capture it, and even if it doesn't capture it, doesn't matter. So imagine if even after he the capture on bishop takes d6, still can he make any progress? He has an extra bishop, a full piece up, 5 pawns each. There is no entry for black at all. So the game will be definitely declared as a draw. So this is a theoretically drawn position, and it is practically also not possible to win this game, and the game will be declared as a draw. So these are the 4 ways in which a game can end up in a draw. I'll repeat again. One is a stalemate, and the second is when no pieces and no pawns are left for both the sides. And the 50 move rule, the 50 move rule applies only when there are no pawn movements from both the sides and when there are no captures from both the sides. Even if in one of those moves, if there was a pawn movement or if there was a piece capture, then you have to recount from that particular move where one has made that pawn movement or a piece capture, and you have to record it by notation and check whether 50 moves are over or not. And the final thing is, by mutual agreement between both the players, you can declare the game as a draw. So these are the 4 ways in which you can declare the game as a draw. Okay guys, so that's it for today. And I hope you got something insightful from this session, and I hope you enjoyed my videos. In case you liked my video, please subscribe to my videos and give a thumbs up. I would be really grateful. Any doubts, or if you need any more such instructive videos for beginners, please post in the comments so that I can prepare myself and come up with more such videos. Thanks a lot. It's Vishnu again, signing off from Kailash. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care of yourself.